Ready? At this time, I'd like to call the special meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council Audit Committee to order at 4 p.m. on April 27, 2021, and the machine is open for roll call.
Verbal here.
There we go. Let the record reflect that all members are present. Mr. Duke is here representing the Audit Department, and Mr. Epley is here representing his departments. I would like to ask us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We'll move to item 2.
Speak into the mic.
The internal audit of Plaquemines Parish Government, Louisiana Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, LSPCA CEA, and the Plaquemines Animal Welfare Society, PAWS CEA, project number 2021-10. Let's turn to page 5 and we'll review the observations. Internal audit observations. Recommendations. In my opinion, when PAWS PPG CEA expired on December 31st of 2017, it would have been a better practice for PAWS and PPG to have signed and executed a new CEA on January 1st, 2018, instead of working off of an expired CEA during that time. Management response, the administration took over in 2019. When they realized the CEA had expired, they called PAWS and executed a new CEA. Observation number 2, a legal review. Recommendation, ensure that the legal department reviews all agreements before they are executed. Management response, legal did review and draft a CEA. I will ask them about a stamp going forward. Observation number 3, PPG funding to LSPCA and PAWS. Recommendation, I noted during my conversations with both parties that they appear to be first-class organizations. However, the parish could have funded PAWS shortfall as of September 26, 2019, in the amount of $13,695.63, as noted in their profit and loss statement, and saved money in the process. Management response, PAWS could not keep a director. The shelter was overcrowded. There were sick animals and dying in their care. The PAWS group did not want to stay. They suggested we negotiate with the SPCA. Most of these responses, I believe, would have been taken care of or would have helped reduce these issues if they would have received the $150,000 that was provided to the LSPCA. That would have helped keep a director. The part about overcrowding and sick animals dying in their care, I spoke with Ms. Gagliano, and doesn't seem like she would agree with those statements. The PAWS group did not want to stay. They suggested we negotiate. After speaking with Ms. Gagliano, she stated to me that the administration wanted her to stay, but they couldn't provide the funding for her to keep the operation going as she wanted to go.
Any comments from the members?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. Epley, is that a fact that we didn't have the funds, but yet we took SBCA in at a much higher price. Do you recall, Ms. Epley?
I recall that in speaking with Paws, they came to us and said that they did not want to be in the shelter anymore. We asked them, could they stay till the end of the year? They said they didn't have money to stay till the end of the year. We provided additional monies to them out of the animal control budget for them to stay till the end of the year in the amount of at least $15,000, I believe. As far as the following year, they suggested we negotiate with LASPCA. It was my understanding that they were aware that LASPCA was going to get a substantial amount more money. And it was also my understanding that it was offered to them and they refused it.
I'm going to, are you through? You through? You finished? Let me clear this up for the record as far as my recollection. Paws at no time really wanted to leave if they could have gotten the funding. And they were told numerous times that there was not enough funding to give them to continue the operations. And when I learned that the increase was very substantial to the SPCA, I contacted and talked to some of the Paws board members. And, you know, they were disappointed in the way that this was handled because they seemed to be thrown under the bus saying that, you know, they didn't want it, they didn't want to do this. Of course they didn't want to do it because they never were offered this type of money. If they would have been offered this type of money, they would have stayed. And that's my opinion. And I think that, you know, I'm not saying the SPCA is doing a poor job or a bad job, and it's probably better for the health of those people at Paws to move on because they dedicated their lives to this organization and to this effort. And I remember distinctly bringing them in to run the operation, and they did their best, and they had the community involved with this operation. So overall, if they would have been given the amount of money that the LASPCA was given, I believe they would still be here today.
I don't have a response. We have a difference of opinion. It was my understanding that Ms. Gagliano was aware of everything that was going on. Ms. Gagliano was involved in everything with the transition. You know, I understood that she was aware of everything that was happening.
Well, she's not here to defend herself, but in conversations with Mr. Duke, he can attest to what she said. In conversations with me, I can attest to what she said. And she may have been involved to an extent of the transfer and encouraging the transfer because she's an animal lover and she wanted what was best for the animals. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty of what went down, Paws was not given the opportunity to get this type of money. In fact, we didn't know that this type of money was going to be given because what the administration did, they took the money that was in the budget and gave a 9-month contract, I believe it was, just to cover the contract so they weren't in violation of the charter for committing funds that were not appropriated. And what they did was they backed us into a corner to have to come up with the money in the new budget to cover this amount of money. And that's my recollection of it, because when I questioned the attorney told me that we didn't encumber funds we didn't have, we only did a 9-month contract. And I believe that's the correct monthly contract, but I know it wasn't a full year. And that was the way they got around the budget, forcing us into a final budget, which was a lot more money.
That's correct. I believe that is correct. Again, we had no one to operate the shelter, and we needed someone to operate the shelter to provide that service.
Well, it's over, done with, and LSPCA is running it, so I don't know what the next move is, but with the next budget coming along, I'm hoping that y'all are talking to them about negotiating something, because it's going to be coming down to human lives versus animal lives, probably.
Yeah, and it could come down to that. And if it comes down to that, at the very least, I think we're required to provide a municipal shelter where animal control would, pick up animals on the street and hold them for 7 days, and then they would be euthanized if they weren't picked up. Even at that rate, we were given salary projections from Raymond with the health department, and it's very expensive even if we just run a municipal shelter.
Any other questions? Ms. Newberry, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just very disappointed that Paws left. They were great service to our community. We really had a lot of constituents that got involved. I'm not sure where we are with LSPCA. Did someone say is it a no-kill shelter? Do you recall?
It is not a 100% no-kill shelter.
Okay. I mean, I find they don't give the services that Paws used to give. They don't. I mean, I thank them for being here, but you just.
Well, last year was a little bit of a challenging year with COVID. They had planned to go out and do rabies vaccinations across the parish. They had planned food giveaways.
I understand.
They had a lot of things planned that they didn't do because of COVID last year. They had 3% in 2020 were euthanized, 2% died in their care. Their live release rate was 95%. The numbers we had from PAWS had an 86% live release rate.
Are those numbers in this audit?
No, they were in the presentation that I sent to the council members several months back.
The audit is mainly about PAWS, what they've done for us, their profit and loss. I don't see anything in this audit that shows what SPCA has presented us
think,
last year.
Trudy,
Am I missing that?
Take a look at the attachments.
Uh-huh.
It has a whole lot of schedules that detail how efficient PAWS really was being, with.
Mr. Duke, would you speak into the mic, please?
If you take a look at the attachments in my report, it'll detail out the amount of work that PAWS is actually doing for the animals.
PAWS or SPCA?
PAWS.
Yeah, I saw that. So I was just, my question.
Now, I did ask for some information from the SPCA, and I waited for a period of time, but I never received it.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Duke, but it kind of disappoints me that we didn't have anything to compare it to.
I agree, and I tried to get that information.
To me, it was a waste of your time.
Well, not really. I don't think the audit's a waste of time at all because of the amount of information that you have in the report. There's a lot of information in the report if you take a look at it.
So do
And
you,
you can have a comparison, sure, and I tried to get that comparison,
since we
but
were not
they would
able
not send it.
to do service, to apply the services to the constituents with rabies shots, do you think they have a surplus in their account from Plaquemines because of that? Mr. Epley?
No, I don't believe they do.
So either.
I believe that we just pay them under the contract, and I don't think it's specified that they're going to do all.
It just worries me that we're paying this money and we can't see where it's going versus what I've seen for PAWS. So that's my
And Mr.
problem.
Epley can attest to this because I shot him an email asking for the profit and loss statement for those years. I waited several weeks and I did not receive it. So I needed to get the report out. I went ahead and sent it out without it.
All of that information was sent to you prior to this audit happening. There was a slideshow presentation from LASPCA that I forwarded to all of the council members.
I was just thought maybe they had something from 2020. That's all. That's what I was asking for. You sent something for 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
So why wasn't it presented to the auditor?
The slideshow was presented to you guys. I don't know.
I didn't get it.
If Mr. Duke's doing
I
the
asked for the
audit,
information, did not receive
we
it.
don't handle Mr. Duke on a regular basis. He takes a job and he does his work. We don't feed him anything, direct him in any way. He's an independent auditor, and so you can laugh all you want, Mr. Epley. That's the facts, you know. And, the mask doesn't hide your chagrin.
I'm just having a good day.
I'm sure you are, and I'm having one too. But I'm telling you the facts, and if we were given an email, he should have been able to have that information as well. And I think the fact that we're here and having this discussion shows that we don't feed him information.
Well, I apologize if he did not get all the information he requested. I'll let my new assistant handle that, and I thought she had all of it done. I'll follow up.
That sounds good. But it is rather interesting that I received so much information concerning PAWS, and I got no information concerning the SPCA. I mean, it didn't make any sense then. It doesn't make any sense now.
Okay.
Any further discussion on this item? Any more questions? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item, B.
Discussion of and adoption of legislation, a resolution authorizing and directing the internal auditor to review and, if needed, audit Borrow Pits operating in Plaquemines Parish and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Okay, the Borough Pit Committee has met a couple of times, and as a result of that, we have been asked by the Borough Pit Committee to move forward with a couple of things. One of them was that the parish ordinance that's been in place for some time, where the parish president was and is still obligated to appoint an attorney on the legal staff to work the Borough Pit issues, has not been completed. So there's no attorney that's been recommended or appointed as per the ordinance, so I believe the administration's in violation of the ordinance. But as a result of that, as you know, at the last council meeting, we passed a resolution directing our council attorney to step into those shoes to some extent, but not to the point of filing lawsuits or anything, but to look into the issues for guidance as to where we are with the Borough Pit issue overall. And I'm not sure if the administration plans on participating or not. The second part of that is that we were asked by the Borough Pit Committee to use the in-house internal auditor to take a cursory look at the Borough Pit operations in the parish and look at what's going on as far as compliance on that issue. And as you know, we have Mr. Amity here at the last Borough Pit Committee that gave us quite a bit of information. And so that's what we're here today to see if the committee is willing and wanting to adopt a resolution directing the internal auditor to review and, if needed, audit Borough Pits operating in Plaquemines Parish. So at this time, I'm going to offer the resolution and ask for a second, and then we can discuss it.
Second.
Second by Mr. Konovich. The resolution, ask the secretary to read the resolution, please.
A resolution authorizing and directing the internal auditor to review and, if needed, audit Borrow Pits operating in Plaquemines Parish and otherwise provide with respect thereto. Whereas a recommendation has been made by the Borrow Pit Advisory Committee to use in-house resources to review and, if needed, audit Borrow Pits operating in Plaquemines Parish. And whereas it is the desire of this audit committee to accept the recommendation of the Borrow Pit Advisory Committee. Now therefore be it resolved by the Plaquemines Parish Audit Committee that it hereby authorizes and directs the internal auditor to review and, if needed, audit Borrow Pits operating in Plaquemines Parish. Be it further resolved by the Plaquemines Parish Council Audit Committee that if the internal auditor finds it necessary to conduct an audit of operating Borrow Pits, the 2021 to 2022 audit plan shall be amended to include said audit.
Okay, I'll open the floor and ask for any comments or discussion on the item.
Yes, so when we asked Mr. Duke to look into this, is this all Borrow Pits? Are you going to be able to handle all Borrow Pits? Or are we looking at whoever replies to you?
What I'm going to have to do with this is I'm going to have to get with the Borough Pit Committee, and talk to them and get an understanding as to how this works and to get an overview. And then at that point in time, if you have a whole lot of, I really don't have a clue at this point, but just say, for instance, you have 15 borough pits. More than likely what I'll do is take a sample of those a random sample, and I'll look into those. And we'll do a preliminary survey, and if something really comes up that I think is issues, we can talk about it at the next meeting, and then, at that point in time, we can decide, or the committee can decide, based on preliminary review of the sample that I've taken, if we want to go forward with a complete audit, or if we want to just end it at that point.
Yeah, well, I just hope that we stick to the borough pits that are active, not waste
Yeah,
our
and
time.
I
on the
really
ones that
don't
aren't.
understand it at this point, so I'm going to have to get with the committee so I can get a full understanding as to what the population is. I don't even know. Does anybody know? Are we dealing with 20 borough pits, 25?
Well, Mr. Duke, the preliminary work that the Borough Pit Committee has done, it looks to be apparently 6 operating
You're not-
pits.
6, okay. Well, that's
And
not
so,
bad. We could take
Anyway, the Borough Pit Committee, as it moved forward, learned a lot about the operations of the parish ordinance.
okay.
And it was a result of Mr. LaFrance's moratorium resolution that the Borough Pit Committee was formed. I mean, and we were in hopes that we would not have to put a borough pit moratorium on if we could learn enough and feel comfortable with what is going on with the operations of the borough pit ordinance. But the 2012 ordinance has so many, I guess, the loopholes, if you want to call it that, were created by court cases and agreements, some approved and some not approved. And so we're not really operating under the 2012 ordinance, except if you came in and wanted to open up a borough pit today, a new one.
Because the parish president approved a lawsuit and never went before the council for their approval.
Yeah, there's been some missteps, I believe, along the way, administratively as well.
Really what I need to try to figure out is who's in charge of the borough pits. I need to talk to them. Who's managing the borough pits?
Well,
I need to talk
you
to
know,
them.
without-
I need to get an
without us-
understanding, first of all,
Without
what's
us
going
getting
on.
into that detail right now,
then
I
I
don't
can
think
do a
there's anybody
preliminary.
in charge of the borough pits except the owners. And the ordinance that's in place is not being administered or followed by the parish administration as far as, just as an example, the accounting, the fees that are dedicated in the ordinance to do this job have not been accounted for to us. And the parish president has committed that he is going to do an accounting and provide those fees, the numbers, to be able to hire or pay to have those ordinances enforced. So it's,
It
look,
sounds to me like, based on the information that we already have, they're not in compliance with the ordinances, correct?
well, it's, the
If
ordinance
that's the
doesn't,
case, we probably need to do an audit on it.
the ordinance doesn't really mean a whole lot to some of the borough pit operators because they have a side agreement. They have agreements that have been signed either and stamped by a court or have been agreed to by an administration. And so everybody is operating on a different page.
Right.
So anyway, it's going to be a challenge,
It sounds like.
as the Borough Pit Committee was a challenge, because we said when we had our very first Borough Pit Committee meeting, the challenge is if the administration is willing to cooperate.
Right.
And to this point, they have given very little cooperation.
Well, I've been through that scenario before, in my other audits. If I run into a situation where that's the case, where I'm not getting cooperation, we have a scope limitation. And once you have a scope limitation, it's unauditable. Okay? And that'll be basically my report. A one-page saying this is unauditable, there's a scope limitation.
That's why we
I don't
have,
have cooperation from management. In order to do any of this stuff, you have to have that. Just starting off, if I don't have that, my first guess is that it's unauditable.
the reason we are at this point is because we followed some guidance from the administration. When we hired Mr. Garrett, it was a recommendation from the administration because they didn't want to appoint an attorney. And the last council meeting told it all. I mean, Mr. Gouy got up and explained what he wanted. The rest of us are all basically looking to see what really is going on there. But anyway, without bogging the meeting down, I'll open the meeting. Ms. Newt?
Yeah, I guess my question is, if we pass this resolution, do they have to oblige by it? I mean, do they have any legal any legal action saying, hey, you can't audit us? I mean, how does that work? I mean, do we have anything in their contract saying that we can audit? We've had that discussion.
Isn't it in their permit that we give them that we can audit?
Mr. Burris has assured me that we do have auditing authority.
Okay.
Yeah, is that in writing somewhere?
Is it in writing?
Somewhere. You know?
That's why we have attorneys to answer those questions if they decide to answer them. And so, without trying to create the audit today, any more comments from the table?
No.
The audience? None? All right, there's no other audience. I'll ask Secretary call the roll. And the resolution is adopted 3-0. Next item, please.
Audits in progress, number 3.
Yes, well, I think that's going to be off the table for right now. I'm in the process of work on a cancel of the aging.
Council on Aging?
Yeah, and I'm in the process of putting that together, but if I'm going to shift over to the borough pits, that's off the table at this point.
All right, and you know how many audits you've completed this year?
2 so far, plus the follow-up work. I think 9 follow-up audits and 2 regular audits.
9 follow-ups and 2 audits.
The way it's been working for the past few years is I've been getting out roughly 4 or 5 audits a year.
But you are going to be able to complete Council on Aging, is that correct?
Well, that's
Yes,
good to do that.
as soon as, yes, that'll be the one after the borough pits.
All right, so we're going to add Borough Pits.
On the follow-up that you did, or any of your inputs being taken?
Into consideration.
Yeah, well, we've had discussions of that, and management says that they have put those in place, yes. Now, I think you had brought up one issue that in my recreation report, I did recommend that report, I think it was, I can't think of the name of it offhand, but that report, that contract should have gone before the council for review before it was executed. And I've said this over and over again to Mr. Roussel, and I'll say it to the committee. I believe that all contracts, I don't care how small they are, should go before the audit should go before the council, I should say, before they're executed. And I think we had a meeting to that effect a while back.
Right, Mr. Duke, this government used to approve contracts. Somewhere along the line, I think the previous administration got off of that idea, and that's part of the problem of lack of communication and transparency around here, why so many fingers will get pointed, because they'll find out about a contract. They had no idea about it, and I believe in the days when the council would approve contracts, the administration would come to the table and present them, there was a lot more transparency and cooperation between the two bodies, the executive and the legislative branch.
It should be.
But there is an ordinance on the books that calls for that, but the administration has not followed that ordinance. So one day, I guess, we got away from mandamuses. We try not to do those things anymore, but they probably have a place. Anyway. Any further comments or discussion to be had today? If not, move to the next item.
Number 4, approval of the minutes from the March 11, 2021 meeting.
I have a motion.
I'll motion.
Mr. Kanovich? Mr. Newberry seconds. Any comments or discussion on the approval of the minutes of the March 11, 2021 Audit Committee meeting? From the table, from the audience? No comments? Machine is open. The minutes are adopted 3-0. You have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Kanovich, second by Ms. Newberry. Machine is open. And meeting is adjourned at 4:30 PM. Thank you all for coming.